Well, Dustin, Wally Joyner on today's Sportlight podcast. We just finished an interview with him. Incredible interview. What would you preview for the people today?
Wally Joyner, everybody. If you haven't heard, go Google him. 16-year Major League Baseball player, was an all-star as a rookie, was a coach for many years, and we get into all sorts of stuff from practicing properly to dealing with slumps, and even have some fun with them and throw some pretty cool questions at him that he had 5 seconds to answer, and he had some pretty cool answers to those questions. So it's pretty cool to be able to have a guy of his stature get on and talk with us for 40 minutes. I think listeners will enjoy it.
Yeah, one of my favorite interviews we've ever done. Hope everyone enjoys it.
Welcome to the Sportlight podcast for parents, coaches, and athletes. The Sportlight refers to the time in an athlete's life when they have increased ability to affect the culture around them and the increased opportunity to learn life's lessons through sports. This podcast aims to help parents and coaches capitalize on their athletes' precious time in the Sportlight. The Sportlight podcast is brought to you by Especially for Athletes program.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. This is Dustin. I'm here with Shad Martin, and we've got Major League Baseball All-Star Wally Joyner. Wally, thanks for joining us.
Dustin, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
We're excited to have you on. Just refresh us all here, Wally, and for some of the maybe younger listeners, I know all the listeners my age and Shad's age are very familiar with you if you were a baseball fan, but when did you start your career and when did you retire? And then I know you got into coaching a little bit in Major League Baseball. Will you kind of give us that sort of update on how that all went?
Yeah, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, played basketball and baseball. I chose baseball to further my education after high school. I was lucky enough to get a scholarship to Brigham Young University, where I spent 3 years, 81, 82, and 83. After my 83 and junior year, I was drafted by the California Angels, who no longer are in existence. Now the Los Angeles Angels, but spent 2.5 years in the minor leagues, broke into the major leagues in 1986, spent 6 years with the Angels. I left the Angels and went to the Kansas City Royals for 4 years. Then I played for the San Diego Padres for 4 years, 96 through 99. I was lucky enough to go back home for 1 year to play with the great Atlanta Braves at the time. That was in 2000. And then I ended my career back with the Anaheim Angels. So I played on two teams that are no longer around, the Anaheim Angels and the California Angels. But a lot of fun, 16 years longer than I ever thought I was going to play in the big leagues. After I retired, I took a few years off and then got back into the coaching ranks. I was the head hitting coach for the San Diego Padres for 2 years. I was asked to be the head hitting coach for Major League Baseball International, where we traveled around the world and we did camps and clinics for amateur baseball players. And that was fun. I did that for 4 years. And then I got back into the big leagues with the Philadelphia Phillies as their hitting instructor in 2013. And then 2014, 15, and 16, which were my last years, I was a head coach for the Detroit Tigers.
Nice. Well, wow. That's quite the career, Wally.
Well, thank you. It was long. That's longer than I thought, even talking about it. So,
is there a portion of that career that you would mark off as the best part? Was there a 3 or 4 year period that were sort of your either coaching or playing that were just the glory years? You feel the fun years?
I enjoyed coaching, but there's nothing like playing. And so, my 16 years of playing, every year I was able to put the uniform on and go out and play. It was a great year for me. So I appreciated all the years. My first year, you'll always remember your first at bat, your first opportunity. We had a great team that year with many, many veteran and some Hall of Famers. Reggie Jackson was on that team, Bob Boone, Don Sutton, Doug DeCinces, Bobby Gritch, Brian Downing. So I learned a lot my first couple of years playing with those guys, which I think was very advantageous for me. I learned how to play the game the right way. And Then in San Diego, 96 and 98, we went to the postseason. And in 98, we went to the World Series. We lost to the Yankees. But that season of getting there and the drive and the success was probably my favorite year.
Yeah. And see, I seem to remember you. I had forgotten about that World Series trip with the Padres. I remember the loss to the Red Sox, but in that series, you got sick. I remember you telling me about this. I didn't know that you, when we went golfing last summer, you filled me in on the whole story. And that was because you were red hot. You came out in the first couple games just killing the ball. And then you got some random, tell us that story. That blew my mind.
Well, it was, some of my injuries throughout my career were some rare, unique injuries. And so this one, unbeknownst to any of us, I started, I was the first player ever to start in an all-star game, which was a great honor. And right after the all-star break, we were in Seattle, Washington, playing the Mariners, and I fouled a couple of balls off of my front shin hitting. The second one cut my skin open. I thought I broke my leg. They carried me off the field. I went to the hospital. X-rays were negative, but what happened that we didn't know about was I contracted staph in that wound. And so the second half of the season, I was complaining about being tired all the time and didn't have a lot of energy. And everybody put it in the category of you're a rookie and you're not used to playing this many games. So it made sense. I did the best I could. My stats, my numbers went down the second half, but I was still good enough to play and get the job done. So we made the playoffs. We were up against the Boston Red Sox. My first two games, I had a couple of hits at each game. I hit a homer. And in the third game back in Anaheim, I eluded a tag at home plate, and I twisted my ankle of the same leg that I hit a couple of balls off of. And that night, I came down with flu-like symptoms. I had a fever, chills, and I was in bed saying, "No, not now. I can't get the flu now, right?" And I jump out of bed the next day, and I collapse on my right side, and I look down, and I have red streaks going up my leg. I don't know what's going on. I hobble to the car. I drive to the ballpark. I go into the training room, and within 10 minutes, the doctors had admitted me into the hospital, and they were pretty serious about it. I didn't know what was going on, but what we found out was staph was going through my bloodstream and through my body, and it was touch and go for a while. I could have lost my leg, and luckily I didn't. But that was a strange injury that took me out of the playoffs, which I was unfortunately unhappy about.
Yeah, and you never know if you're going to get back there, right? I mean, you were fortunate enough to, but in all those years, you made it one other time just with the Padres?
Yeah, I went to the playoffs two other times with the Padres, and then my year with the Braves, we went to the playoffs. We got beat by the St. Louis Cardinals. So, 16 years of playing and one time to the World Series, it's hard to get to it. And we were very appreciative of the opportunity, and it's one of the years that we'll never forget.
Yeah.
Wally, you said something there a while back that Dustin and I preach a lot to our athletes. In fact, we've talked about it recently on some of our podcasts, that when you recounted all of those great teammates that you played with your rookie year and that you attributed some of your success in coming into the league being surrounded by those great people, we encourage our young people to take opportunities, to be humble enough to go to your teammates and to learn from them and to learn from the great things that they do and the things they do well that maybe you don't do as well. Would you speak to that and what that looked like for you as you came into the league with those great teammates?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in playing the game the right way, learning how to play the game the right way. My manager that year was an old school manager. His name was Gene Mock. He was a no-nonsense guy. he lived and breathed baseball, and he loved the game. But there was the right way to play it. There was the wrong way to play it. And he told me something halfway through that year, which stayed with me my whole career and even to today, and which was, he looked at me and he said, "Son, you're having a great start to this season and to your career." And he said, "Son, if you ever come to the ballpark thinking that you know everything about this game, it's probably time to pack up and not play anymore, because if you don't have room to learn the game and watch the game and improve your game every day, you're not going to improve and you're not going to be helpful." So I took that to heart, and I truly believe that you can learn something every game by watching. You can't learn anything when you're talking and when you're not watching. In my opinion, one of the hurdles that young players have to get over is thinking that by making it to the big leagues, they've arrived, and that's all that they have to do. And it's unfortunate to see these great, talented players not progress and not improve. And for some, they're not around very long. And so if I can say anything to young kids and to talented kids, let your talents talk for you. Play it humbly. You know, it's a privilege to play the game, and appreciate what you bring to the game, but also appreciate what everybody else brings to the game also. And you'll have a better opportunity and a better career.
Can you think of a player when you coached, Wally, that really exemplified that thirst or knowledge to want to continue learning? I'm sure you had some that probably felt like they had it all figured out, but do any of them come to mind that you remember that were just, and because of that, really benefited?
Yeah, so when I was with the Padres, my first couple of years, 07 and 08, they had a lot of talented players on the team. Adrian Gonzalez comes to mind as a very talented first baseman that came every day, wanting to learn, wanting to improve. And I think it showed with how he played every day and how long he played. I know injuries play a part into your longevity, but I think one of the hardest things to do is get to the big leagues, and then even something harder is to stay in the big leagues. And when one of the things I'm most proud of is I played 16 years, and it wasn't given to me. I had to fight every spring training. There were 6 or 7 first basemen that were at first base wanting my job, and that fight and that challenge, I think, made us all better. And I know it made me better, and I appreciated that challenge.
Yeah. Wally, one of the things we talk a lot about is resilience. And as you just shared that, both with your injury and with your having to win your spot every year over 6 other first basemen, and also just playing a sport where you fail most of the time and you're still really, really good. I wonder what you would tell young people about resiliency, the importance of being resilient, and what you've learned about that topic as a baseball player.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this. I think for many people, it's very scary to push yourself to find out how good you really can be for many reasons. Number one, you may fail. The outcome might not be what you were hoping for, but until you get to that point and until you push yourself to see. So listen, I wasn't the best player ever on a ball club. There were many doubters in high school when they asked me what I was going to do after high school. And I said, I'm going to play college baseball. And they said, well, good luck with that, but I don't think you can do it. And then when I got to college, my hopes were to have a chance. There's no guarantees, but to have a chance to become a professional. And that's in the worst way. You have to go to the minor leagues. It's worse than college. You can barely great money every 2 weeks. I mean, you get paid nothing. So You have to find out quickly if you really want to fight for this. But I loved it. I loved competing. I loved the opportunity every day going out and seeing exactly what my practice and my persistence was going to look like out on the field and turn into success. And you mentioned baseball is a game of failure, especially on the hitter side. In the big leagues, if you are 3 out of 10, you're an all-star. And if you do that for a lot of years, you're a Hall of Famer. To get the mental strength of thinking that 30% of your performance is successful and to be okay with it, it's completely different than anything else we teach ourselves. In high school and in college, we want to make 90%, 95% on our grades. And if we ever brought home a 30% report card to our parents, you wouldn't see us for a couple weeks, right? But so I think more than anything, that's the struggle. I saw it in the minor leagues. I saw it in the big leagues, where the fight to accept what you're doing is positive truly separates the players.
Wally, I'm looking here. I just pulled up your stats while you were talking there. When you said 16 years, I thought that's a heck of a lot of games. So you played over 2,000 games.
Yep.
You had over 2,000 hits, 2,066 hits, over 200 home runs. You only struck out 825 times, which is awesome in that many games. However, 800 times you walked back to the dugout having just, had somebody get the best of you. I know that there were times when that happened multiple times in a game for you, or maybe multiple games in a row for you. We call it a slump in baseball, right? What did you do, or what do you counsel when you were a hitting coach to help guys? I'm curious your thoughts on helping guys get out of a slump. How do we give us some advice on how we could tell our sons or daughters?
Well, I'll say a few things about those statistics, Dustin, and which is, again, the numbers that are on the back of my baseball card, I'm very, very proud of. They've been earned. One of the stats that sticks out, you mentioned half of it, which was I struck out 800 times, but I'm only one of a few in Major League Baseball that walked more than I struck out. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
So in saying that, I never went up to the plate to strike out, and I never went up to the plate to walk. And those are results of an at-bat that, I fought through. I would love to say that half of my strikeouts were caused by the umpire, but I can't say that. Right? But you have to give credit to the players that are in the big leagues. They're making a living. And someone thinks that they're good, and they are. In the major leagues and on teams, you have a number one pitcher, a number two pitcher, 3, 4, and 5. Any one of those can get you out at any time. They're good. So, that was the challenge every night, to prepare yourself to face that pitcher and to see if what you were preparing yourself to do was going to make your at-bats positive that night. So, and talking to, as a coach and as a player, I would have to say 30 times in my 16-year career, Dustin, I got in my car after a ball game, driving home and saying, okay, this is it. I can't play this game anymore, right? Nothing I do is right. Everything I do is wrong. I can't even make a hard out, right? And so it is frustrating. It is absolutely frustrating. And again, that's part of the struggle of and how great and why baseball's so great, because no one's immune from a slump.
Yeah.
The thing between your ears can really play a role into your success and how you can get yourself out of a slump. In my many times of slumping, the fix, the easy fix was, get the ball up, right? Quit chasing, swing at a better pitch. All of these things were a part of my anxiety up at the plate, right? So, you focus, you calm down, you slow the game down. And and you say that, slow the game down. Well, when you're not slumping and when you're in the zone, everything looks like it's slow motion, right? And I would imagine it's in all sports. When the game looks easy to you and feels easy, that's when things are going right. And we as players look for that to stay with us, but it never does, because we tinker with something and then it's gone. And so, the struggle of handling that slump. It's baby steps. There were a lot of times, even the greatest of players. I remember talking to Dave Winfield one time, and if you remember Dave Winfield, he was a big outfielder, 6'7", 6'8", probably 270, just a giant of a man. And he was intimidating up at the plate. And he told me that part of that intimidation was to help him get out of a slump, or help him get the edge on the pitcher that he's facing, because any edge that you can get is very, very helpful and useful. Yeah. So we all go through it.
It sounds to me like great players, as we've interviewed a number of people here and through all different sports, that there is kind of this healthy acceptance that what we're doing is hard as athletes, right? It's hard. Baseball's hard. And every now and then failure can start to multiply upon itself. I've heard Dustin say many times, don't let this play, don't lose the next play because of this play, that we get in that realm. And learning, what I heard in your answer is that it's healthy to be able to say, hey, sometimes the pitcher's just really good and he wins. He makes that great pitch. I've shared this with Dustin before, but my first college coach, one time I had a few strikeouts in a game and I was frustrated. I thought I was going to have this great moment with my coach and ask him for his advice. And I said, hey, coach, what am I doing wrong? And he looked at me and said, shut up. I was just, and he went on to say, do you think I'm stupid? Do you think I would recruit someone who can't hit the ball? And, I kept saying, no. And he said, sometimes in baseball, the pitcher wins. That's why it's a great game, and just that, for me, that took weight off me, that my coach, watching me play, understood that sometimes the guy pitching against you or the person guarding you, they're good too, and they're trying to prevent it. And every now and then that they're going to win. And it's healthy for athletes to realize that, to accept the reality of failure, but as we've quoted before, not the finality of failure, that I'm not going to keep losing. I'm not going to lose next time, but that guy got me,
Yeah, I like that at all. I was trying to think of how I was going to answer that, and that's perfect. I think it's important to understand that there's great people and great players that you're going to play against. And as you continue to rise in the level of your baseball career, high school to college to the professional ranks to, I tend to, there's five levels, or there used to be 5 levels of the minor leagues. There was A ball, or there was short season, rookie ball, A ball, high A, double A, triple A, right? And, people go, what's the difference in those leagues? Well, in rookie ball, everybody's trying to figure everything out. Once you get to, let's say, high A ball, you're probably going to face one good pitcher every 5 days. Double A, you're going to face 2. Triple A, you're going to face 3 every 5 days. In the big leagues, you're going to face 5, right? Every day, that pitcher can get you out, and so you have to understand that, but don't accept it. And I like what you said. It's not the finality, right? You're not going to fail all the time, and you don't need to accept failing. But this game is very humbling, and when there's a lot of funny stories. I was with Goose Gossage over the weekend, who was talking about that epic battle when he was with the Padres in 1984. facing Kirk Gibson with the Tigers, right? And he was telling us the story, and he said, you know what really did it for me was before the game, we started talking about the what ifs of this game that was about to be played, and they brought up Kirk Gibson, and Goose Goss had said, "I own him," right? And he said, right when I said that, I wanted to take all those words and put them back in my mouth, because whenever you think you've got this game figured out, it's going to bite you. And that night, he was up against Kirk Gibson. The manager wanted him to walk him. He fought it, said, no, I can get this guy out. The next pitch was a homer, right? So the best of the best have failures in their career. And I think that, not that we all want to fail, but unless you have failed, you don't know what success really is. And you don't know when to appreciate it. So it's part of the game.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we talk about, Wally, is mental toughness. And that's a word that gets thrown around by everybody. And resiliency is another one. We've already talked about that, but I found in speaking to kids that I'll use the word resiliency, and then kids I coach or speak to, I'll ask them, do you know what resiliency is? And most of the kids don't even know the word. They've heard it. Mm-hmm. They think it just means be tough. Right. But mental toughness, I think that's another one that, well, mental toughness means, like, what is it really? Like, mental toughness, you just touched on it, and so did Shad, is you're not weak if you accept that you're sometimes going to, you're sometimes going to lose. That's not weakness. That's just reality, right? But you don't have to accept that you're always going to lose. But what's mental toughness to you, and how did you see that during your career in moments where you had to develop more of it, or can we develop more of it? Is there any tricks that you use to be more mentally tough when you were in tough situations?
Yeah, I think that I truly believe that if you understand the game of baseball, I mean, if you really understand the rules, if you understand the strategy, if you understand responsibility, what's my responsibility in this situation? What should I prepare for? And it's different. You have the catcher, first, second, third, short, and all the three outfield spot. Their responsibility is all different in that position on every play. Mm-hmm. And, so on the other side, as a hitter, I'll explain it this way. A lot of times we evaluate our success hitting with hits, base hits. Yeah. Things good, doubles better, triples really good, homers the best we can do, right? Well, there's other ways to evaluate an at-bat. And you can have some great positive at-bats that helps your team win ball games without getting a hit that at-bat, right? Because getting a hit is so difficult. That's why we are so happy when we get our hits. But you can make the right out. One of the obstacles or the hurdle that I fought for many years as a coach was the acceptance of striking out. Again, it's just like accepting a pitcher is going to be good. A strikeout's going to happen, but don't accept it. And do everything you can every at bat not to strike out. It's going to happen. Yeah. But accept it and to say, well, I was trying to hit a homer, I struck out, so it's all right. No. You could do something. If we know what the outcome is when you strike out, nothing, zero. But if you do something else in your at bat without getting a hit, who knows what could happen? You put the ball in play and the hit and the pitch. The guy you hit it to isn't ready and he makes an error. That's just as good as a base hit, and it keeps the rally going. Mm-hmm. So I hated striking out. I loathed it. I hated it. And I did everything in my power every at bat to have a positive at bat, right? A walk can start a rally. The right type of out grounding, hitting a ball to second with the guy at second base and moving him over to third. The guys at third, you don't need a hit. Just get the ball in play and up the middle or in the outfield, and you score the run. Yeah. So the evaluation of players, sometimes they can be hard on yourself. You can't lie about it. Don't lie about what is good and bad. But find the silver lining in the play.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I love that.
That's cool. Can we move to another topic that we love to talk about? We call it win the hour. And win the hour is basically that you look at every hour of every day and you ask yourself, what's the highest priority for me during this hour of this day? Will help you get more out of life. If you're in math class, obviously your highest priority should be math, right? And in relationships, get off your phone, look people in the eye, and get to know people. And of course, when we're on the field or the court, our team and our coach deserves our work and undivided attention. But most people who become elite and played at the levels that you play at, Wally, later on when we talk to them about what they did as a young person growing up and some of the sacrifices they made and what they learned about working hard, all of a sudden it becomes this revelation like, wow, Wally Joyner just wasn't this incredibly gifted genetic, freak that made it to the major leagues, but you set patterns early in your life and you had a plan, a design that helped you get to where you arrived. I would love if you would just take a minute and talk about what you learned as you kind of went through the progression of a young little league kid to playing in the major leagues, about what hard work looks like, how to work smart, just anything you would tell our young people about that.
Well, thank you for that. And I agree with you. No, I wasn't the best athlete ever. I didn't look like the best athlete ever. And I'll tell you this story, which was, I kind of got a little irritated or a lot irritated when I made it to the big leagues and started to play well. And the word lucky came into the description of Wally Joyner. Right. And I was like, no, I'm not lucky. No, that's hard work. Right. But then I heard it so much that I looked up the definition of luck, right? And the definition of luck is when opportunity meets. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? And when I found that definition, and then I started thinking back, I agree with everybody. I was lucky. Right. I might have been the luckiest person ever. And the reason why is because I prepared myself the best I could for every opportunity that was going to be in front of me that day or that week or that year. I can look back at my college days as a freshman, sophomore, and junior, and those years changed. And there were different preparations that I had to do to be successful. And then we moved to the professional levels. And I went from an aluminum bat to a wooden bat, and I had to get used to that. And it was a struggle. And so the preparation that you put yourself through determines your outcome. And everybody knows whether they did a good job that day or not. Everybody knows if they cheated. Everybody knows if I could have done more. And that's one of the things that I would always hear from players that didn't reach the goals that they wanted. Well, if I would have only have done this, right? Or if I wouldn't have gotten hurt or other things. And, injury, I mentioned earlier, injury is part of the career, part of the game. Plenty of great players that were injured early on in their careers that couldn't continue. But again, some of those injuries could have been prevented by, being in better health, being in better condition. And and some couldn't have. So I'm not the one that's going to evaluate that. But for me, I played by the rule of I wasn't going to be the weakest link, right? Regardless of whether I was or I wasn't going to be the reason why we were going to lose today. And I was going to prepare myself in whatever way. I played first base, and I took a lot of pride in my defense. Baseball started to figure out that if you made less errors at first base, you could go hit and you could shorten innings and you could win ball games. So I was out there many, many hours taking ground balls, becoming a good defensive first baseman, becoming a good defensive first baseman for bad throws, and making outs to help the second base, shortstop, and third baseman complete. So there's all kinds of things you can do every day to become better, and do it. When I broke in, Gene Mock expected me to bunt whenever he asked me to bunt. He expected me to hit and run whenever that sign came on. He expected me to get the guy over from second to third. And all of these things I worked on every day, so that when I was called upon to do this, I did it without any problem, or I knew I was supposed to do it. Sometimes the pitcher got the best of me and he prevented, if I know I'm supposed to get the guy from second to third over, the pitcher knows too. And so he's going to try to prevent that. So that's the game inside the game. But, players don't become one-dimensional. The best thing for me that I learned early in my career was I needed to strengthen my weakness. And my biggest weakness was hitting against left-handed pitchers. So if I didn't address that, I was going to see a left-handed pitcher 2 times a game in the 6th and 7th and 8th and 9th innings, which was the most important innings. And if I didn't get the job done, I wasn't going to be in the big leagues very long. So understand what weaknesses are. Don't deny it. Don't run from it. Strengthen it, and you'll be a better player.
You said something there that's so cool. I think it applies to every sport, but I'm just thinking Dustin and I played college baseball together. And so I know, like, you get in that batting cage before a game, and I know what most people are thinking. And it's, let's try to put one in the seats, right? Like,
everybody likes the homers, right?
Yeah. And so, but you're sitting there, you were so intentional in your practice that you're going through scenarios in your head, and you're practicing just hitting a ground ball or hitting to the right side to move a guy over. You're practicing bunting. You're practicing hitting off a left-handed pitcher because it's the weakness that you had. And that suggests a level of intentionality that most athletes don't think through, that if they did, they could be more valuable to their team, not only addressing their weaknesses, but finding out what are my strengths and how can I enhance my strengths so that I can help my team more. And if we're self-absorbed, and in this case, it would look like just going and seeing how many long balls I can hit to impress the kids in the stands, that's not good for your team. It's not good for your career. It's good for that moment. But I love that level of intentionality that as you progress through sports, you start to learn how you can benefit your team. But I don't think I got that as a young kid. And any kids or parents or coaches who can hear this and get that and start teaching that level of practice, it will be a great thing for the young person.
Well, I'll say a few more things about this. Nobody likes to hear what they're not good at doing. And nobody wants to hear, you can't do this, Wally, right? And that was told to me, right? Hey, you can't hit left-handed pitchers very well, Wally. The other part to that is, in batting practice, you work on things that you think is going to help you in the game. So if I want the ball to be thrown to me middle in, right over the plate for batting practice, how many times do you think I'm going to get that in the game? Never. A pitcher's not going to throw to your sweet spot, but what you try to do is get the pitcher to think that that's not your sweet spot. So what do? More likely than not, the first couple of at bats in the game, the pitcher's going to throw away to me, right? So in order for me to be successful early in the game, I need to make sure that when that pitch is over the outside part of the plate, I can drive it over the shortstop's head, right? So I practice that. So when I see it, I know I can do it. And then they see that and they go, well, he can't cover the whole plate. So he's looking out. I'm going to throw in. Thank you. Right? Now you're coming to my strength. And so that's the game of baseball is so good in the strategy of how do you get a pitcher to throw your pitch, right? And it takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of patience, but more than anything, it takes a lot of swings and to be able to cover every strike in the strike zone, because you're going to see those pitches more often than you're going to see the pitch that you're looking for. And when you get that pitch that you're looking for, we miss it all the time, but you try not to miss those pitches.
Yeah. Man, that would be some killer advice for a coach or parent listening to this, to tell their players. Baseball, it's the same thing. You know, I'm in the football world. It's the same thing in football. If I'll have quarterbacks that I train in my other business that will say, Coach, I'm sending you my highlight film. And I'll say, I don't want to see your highlight film. Why do I want to see your highlight film? Your highlights are what you're already doing well. Like, I want to see your low light film. Send me all the crappy throws you made, so we can address those. Because I promise you, before any coach recruits you, he's going to go watch an entire game or two. To that point, this morning, I spent an hour with the offensive coordinator of USC.
Yep.
And we were talking exactly about this. And he said, once I look at a kid's highlight film and I like what I see and I like his measurables, his height, his weight and speed and those kind of things, I'm going to go online. And it's easy to do this now because you can access games online. This was harder to do, years ago, but you can go find any game you want, really. High school games, they're all up somewhere. So I'm going to go watch 2 games and I'm just going to go a couple drives. And after 2 or 3 drives, I can see if you can play or not.
Yep.
Because if you're a next level, big time football player or baseball player, your energy level should be similar all the time, not just on the 30 or 40 highlight films that I see. I should be able to see that in the middle of the second quarter in a random game. I remember a Major League Baseball coach that I'm sure who's a hitting instructor, tell me that when he was recruiting in college, I love this. Well, no, this was when he was in the pros. He would go to college games and, forgive my language here, but I'm going to say it anyway. He said, I wanted to see that guy's ass get off the bus. I wanted to see if his hat was on backwards and did he talk to his teammates?
Yep.
How did he come onto the field? Was he running between the lines? What was his attitude like? Like, looking for a reason not to draft the guy. I know he can hit the ball, but I'm looking for something to go back to the offices and say, I don't think we get this guy because of A, B, or C. So don't have something to turn a coach, off by. And if we go to our players and say, hey, what do you do really well? What's your favorite pitch? So I know to never throw that to you in BP, right? Or to never give you that defense at quarterback when we're in team, because I know you're going to shred it. I want you can you beat man-to-man, right? Can you go to your left-hand basketball player, right, and pull up at 12 feet? If you can't, that's all we got to work on. But we don't. We want to go to the gym and we want to shoot the shot that we see go in the hoop because we feel that's fun, right? We don't want to go shoot the one that clanks off the rim all the time. But that's part of what, Shad, you said about intentional practice. Intentional planning, right? Culture by design, not by default. Elite level people do that. You don't go to the driving range and hit your driver all day. If you already rope your driver, you got to go hit your 5-iron, right? By the way, Wally hits all of his clubs right down the middle. I've played with him a couple times. So he doesn't worry about it.
I love the game of golf, but Dustin, you mentioned something the negativity is strong in all sports. There's jealousy, there's envy, there's all kinds of negative vibes that are happening all the time, doubters. And There was a time in my career where I got together with a couple of people and we just looked at each other and we said, never give anybody any reason. And we use bullets. Don't give anybody any bullets to use against you, right? Because everybody's going to shoot you down. Everybody wants to see you fail, and you are going to fail, but don't make it easy for everybody to use it against you. So, I love it. Coming off the bus, getting ready for a game, all of these things are very important because it's who you are when things aren't going great. Yeah. And baseball, most of the time, things aren't going great. So we got to find out who you are in those times. And, I never had a bad day going to the ballpark, ever. As a player, as a coach, I was excited to go because I was going to learn something that day, or I was going to help somebody learn something that day, and it was going to be a good day. And so I've always had that mindset, and I think it's contagious. I think you can teach people by your example and not by your words or anything, and it's even more valuable as an example because you do it and you believe in it, and so I truly believe staying positive as much as you can, hard work, and doing, what's hard work? Is hard work getting in the batter's box and hitting 100 home runs? No, that's not hard work. What hard work is facing somebody that you're uncomfortable with, getting in a situation where it's uncomfortable, and trying to find that comfortable feeling, right? I mean, on defense, playing in on the grass and having guys hit you shots, that's uncomfortable, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
When I get into that spot where I have to play in, I've done it before, so it's not nearly as uncomfortable. I know I can do it. I know I can catch it and turn two. I know I can catch it and throw home. Why? Because I've done it 1,000, 10,000 times in practice, and not just the Sunday hops and, the going through the motion practice. That's not going to get you to the next level.
Yeah.
You remind me of something Diljit Taylor, the cross-country coach at BYU, said on our podcast. She said, real growth never happens in comfort zones.
That's right.
And I love that. I've thought a lot about that with life and with sports, that if we're looking for Sunday hops, we aren't going to be growing.
No, you're going backwards and you're not helping. When you're not pushing yourself, when you're not, you need to enjoy what you do. And so if you're always uncomfortable, you're not going to have a lot of enjoyment, but put yourself in game type situations, put yourself in the batter's box in game type situations. And it's not always, I got to get a hit right here. It's, man at second base, nobody out. What do I do here? Right. And see the outcome, make yourself deliver in those, if it's a base hit, even better, but have the positive endings where you've done the job, right? And on defense, play up, get those hard one hoppers to you. I missed quite a few, and I got bruises on my shins and on my wrist and off my chest and a few bloody lips, but that's what it takes to know what it feels like, so that when you get into that uncomfortable position, you can get out of it.
Yeah, I love that. I want to finish with something, Shad, I didn't even tell you about. I want to do 1 minute, 60 seconds, and we'll let you go, Wally. But I want to do a rapid fire kind of fun, ask you a couple kind of trip down memory lane picture or questions, okay? And you got to give us a quick answer, and we'll move on.
Here we go.
I've got 3 or 4 ready, Shad. So while I'm saying it, you can maybe think of 1 or 2. All right. Toughest pitcher you ever faced?
Randy Johnson.
Favorite ballpark to play in?
Camden Yards.
Least favorite ballpark to play in?
New Tiger Stadium. It's humongous.
I won't put you on the spot, one of your all-time favorite teammates.
Wow. I'll say a few. Trevor Hoffman, Hall of Fame closer, Chipper Jones, George Brett, Bob Boone, Reggie Jackson. How about those?
Wow, that's great. Chipper Jones he was my guy. Okay. Most memorable hit.
Most memorable hit. I hit a home run off of the Minnesota Twins closer, Mark Davis, after 14 pitches, hit a home run to get us a lead 5-4 in the top of the ninth.
Most crazy thing you ever saw in a baseball game? Is there a blooper or just some crazy play where Randy Johnson hits a bird flying across? Something crazy.
Yeah, that was one. I saw that on TV. That was incredible. Not only did he hit the bird, but it disappeared. Right? But that's how hard he threw. Crazy. There was a lot of crazy games, and we're down by 11 and we come back and win. We're up by 11 and we lose. Right? These games, there's no guarantee what happens. Go play the game, but there was a ball hit off the plate. I was at first base, bounces high right down the first baseline. I go try to catch it, and my head's up in the air, and the runner's running, and his head's down, and his helmet hits me right in the collarbone, and I'm out for 6 weeks. Right, so crazy.
You just so listeners know, if my memory serves me right, looking at your stats, something that caught me, Wally, is I only saw 3 of your 16 seasons where you played less than 100 games.
Yeah. I went to spring training to play every day, right? I wasn't, I wanted to play every day. I wanted to prepare myself every day so that I could help the team win. And luckily, the manager of the team I was playing for thought the same thing and put me at first base because I was their best option. And I played more than 100 games most of my career, that's why you put the uniform on to play.
Yeah.
One bit of advice to every young athlete.
Best advice that I could give you is find out how good you can be.
Awesome. And here's one more. Advice to parents of athletes.
Well, I'll say it this way. It was kind of funny. I don't know if we remember, but the athletic director at BYU, when I went to BYU, was previously he was the hitting coach, or he was the baseball coach, Glenn Tuckett. So Glenn Tuckett, I'll answer your question this way. Glenn Tuckett came up to my mom and I, and he said, Mrs. Joyner, of all the parents who tell me that their son is the next major league star, you are the closest. Right? So to parents, I know we all believe that we're going to have our next Hall of Fame catcher or pitcher or first baseman or quarterback or running back or shooting guard. Enjoy the ride as it takes place, and support as much as you can, but for the most part, stay out of their way.
There you go.
Awesome.
Well, appreciate you, Wally. Shad, Wally, thank you. Great episode. Covered a lot. Wally, we hope we can do it again sometime with you. And again, thanks for your time.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Wow, Dustin, what a great dude that guy is.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I didn't realize he'd played 16 years. When you play 16 years, when you do anything for 16 years, but playing in a sport like baseball where you're playing games nearly every day, you play over 2,000 baseball games. And to be able to do that just physically to your body and have the longevity that he had. And I mean, that guy's got a wealth of knowledge. We only just touched the tip of the iceberg there, but yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, I kept thinking we need to have him on again because I wanted to ask him about 17 more questions with everything that he answered. But one of the things that really stuck out to me, it seemed like the whole interview, I was thinking, that's awesome. But intentional practice.
Yeah.
That was really cool to think situational baseball and how few young people there are, for all you baseball players that might be listening to this, baseball coaches who are individually that intentional about their practice. I'm going to go practice hitting the ball to the right side of the field. I'm going to go take those short hops off my shins and get a bruise on my chest and a bloody lip every now and then. So I faced it before I have to face it in the game. Yeah. I thought that was something that if I could go back to 14-year-old Shad Martin and say, hey, know your strengths. I always wanted to be the home run hitter. I wasn't that guy. You played with me. I would hit one out every now and then. But if I would have leaned into situational baseball even more than I did, I think that's where my strength was. And I wanted to be something I didn't. So I practiced all of those things instead of leaning in and really being exceptional at the others. And that's something that really stuck out to me.
Well, he kind of said that. I didn't think about it till you just mentioned that, Shad. He said at the very end, become something along the lines of become your best or become the very best version of yourself, something about, becoming your very best. But you can't become your very best if you're trying to be something that you're not, right? If you're trying to be the home run hitter, you may work your butt off to be that, but it's just not the card you were dealt. You could have been the very best, just, on base percentage guy that would have made you a career. And, and I mean, he was super proud of the fact that he walked more than he struck out. He walked 830 times. And he was proud of that. That's not a big stat that really looks, you look at, but hey, got on first base. It's, as good as hitting a single, right? And he loathed striking out. He said, so what does he do? I got to have left-handed pitchers throw at me at practice. I can't sit here and hit off a righty all day, because he knows late in the game, they're going to go to their middle reliever and they're going to bring in a lefty to face him late in games. He's never going to see a right-handed pitcher in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning of a game. He's got to be able to hit the money shots, the winning time shots, or hits, off of lefties. But how many times, I mean, I'm thinking of my own, career in sports, but specifically baseball. I don't remember really ever going to the ballpark and pitching a bullpen or something and saying, okay, every single guy that faces me today in practice, I want to pitch at him as if the count is, 0-2. Or if the count's full, right? What's my go-to pitch that I you just kind of pitch, right? Or I got to get this guy to hit into a double play. So what's my best pitch to get this guy to hit it, to my shortstop or second baseman so I can turn this? Do I have something that I can really feel comfortable with? That's intentional. It's the same in basketball. We could use the same examples in golf and everything. What's your shot? Like, what's your go-to move? But you got to practice the ones that aren't, because like he said, the opposing team knows what your go-to move is, what your go-to shot is, where your sweet spot is as a hitter, and he's not going to let you get there. So you got to be able to do other things. That's intentional practice.
Yeah, man, so many things he talked about. Such a great interview.
Yeah, it was awesome.
What a great dude. Well, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining the Sportlight podcast. Share it, like it, leave a review. It helps us. Eyes up, do the work.
This has been the Sportlight podcast from Especially for Athletes, sponsored by Coca-Cola. You can learn more about Especially for Athletes by visiting the website at especiallyforathletes.org. You can also learn more about the book, The Sportlight, by Shad Martin and Dustin Smith at especiallyforathletes.org/book.